Hello, everyone. We're good? Okay, awesome. Good morning-ish. It's my morning. I just woke up like an hour ago, but thank you all so much for being here with us today and just for dedicating your weekend to this conference. Some folks I know were here and they were just mentioning how it was such a great space, empowering space to be with other young people and also allies in youth advocacy. So welcome to our session. We're talking about fighting for economic justice, a youth-led conversation on California policymaking and advocacy. Specifically, we're from an organization called What We All Deserve. It was founded last November. And so it's a relatively younger organization, fully youth-led, youth-founded, and we work a lot on California state policy, working to branch out on other states as well. And we're going to be featuring our lovely panel today of other youth advocates in our organization after we talk a little bit just about our mission statement, how we've navigated young people advocacy, and what are some barriers that we hope to overcome along with other youth movements. My name is Fiona, by the way. So quick agenda overview. We'll do quick introductions. I'll do a quick introduction. I'll pass it off to my fellow youth advocates. We're going to do an overview of just more about our organization, what we do, and how other folks can get involved, the kind of partnerships we have, our panel discussion, a Q&A, and then have a closing. The picture is going to load. Okay, it doesn't look like the pictures are catching on, but I think you can just put the names to faces anyways. So my name is Fiona. Like I said before, I also spoke on the first plenary. I think it was Friday morning. So thank you so much if you were in that space as well. It was such an enlightening conversation. Currently an undergraduate at UCLA. I originally from Orange County, and now I go to school here in the LA area. Been in California for most of my life, and I love California and getting involved in policymaking here. California is a huge trailblazer for a lot of other states in terms of progressive policies, really serving the people through our legislative system. So I'm really happy to be here and just share some of our work with you all. I can pass it off to Allison.
Hi, my name is Allison. I'm a junior from high school. I'm so excited to be here today.
Hi, everyone. My name is Elizabeth Vuong, and I am the Partnerships Director for What We All Deserve. And I just graduated high school and actually will be coming here to UCLA for undergrad. So I'm excited to be here. Thank you so much for coming.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here today. There is some room up front, so if you want to come closer, be a bit intimate, you are more than welcome to. But I am Martin. I am a senior in high school, currently transitioning from high school to college. So I will be an incoming freshman at Santa Monica College. And thank you all for being here, and I'm so excited to be here today.
Thank you so much. That's my awesome team, y'all. I love them. Okay, awesome. So going into a little bit about our organization. So again, our name is What We All Deserve. Our name was actually founded because our main mission statement is to engage youth in basic needs, social welfare, and broader economic justice advocacy. So essentially, we think that all people deserve basic needs. It's vital to human dignity, and we're fighting for what we all deserve. We will empower young people to share their experiences to stand up for justice and minimize the barriers there are for marginalized youth to be engaged in legislative change. We envision a future where everyone has access to basic needs and economic stability, therefore being able to fulfill their goals and aspirations to the fullest. So that last part, we really just envision people to be abundantly opportunistic, and you can't go to school, you can't get your education, you can't live a healthy life if you don't have access to basic needs. So we really just hope to provide families, regardless of the circumstance, with those products, whether that's through legislative change or direct service or other avenues, which we can talk more about later. So who we are high school and college students based across the U.S., mostly in 3 target areas: California, which is where most of our platform is, Texas, and New York. So we have some student advocates in Texas right now working on trying to navigate the Texas legislature there. And really something we're super interested in exploring is comparative state policy and seeing how states take inspiration from other states, mostly on basic needs policies and how we can adopt different policies across states essentially to fit the needs of those communities. And as we all know, Texas is a little bit more conservative, so we're figuring out how to engage young people in that kind of political climate as well. And my co-founder, shout out to her, her name is Esther. She wasn't able to make it because she's in New York. She's based in New York, and she works a lot on the equivalent of Medi-Cal there in New York and policy surrounding public health insurance there. Yeah, and then what we do a lot, but to sum it up, we do mostly policy advocacy, partnership building, education, and direct service. And we really just hope to engage young people in every avenue of social change just so they can find what works for them and how they want to channel their passion for social justice. Okay, awesome. I talk really fast, so let me know. Feel free to like pause and let me know if you have any questions. But going on to our founding story, so how we began with one particular state bill that my colleague Esther and I just kind of had an idea to pitch one day, and we ended up getting it picked up by Senator Menjivar, a state senator from the San Fernando Valley area, so just like maybe like 30 minutes north of here. That's the area she represents. This was a bill in the 2023 legislative session, so again, like we're relatively young, but I feel like we've done a lot of great work already. It would integrate menstrual products as a benefit under CalWORKs. And for folks not from California, CalWORKs is essentially a cash assistance program for low-income families, predominantly serving families of color, women of color. Lots of them are student parents, so a lot of students here at UCLA benefit from CalWORKs. And we were like, it's kind of weird that menstrual products aren't covered under this. They cover travel expenses. The program covers diapers, all necessities to the well-being of children, youth, and adults. And because, the program serves mostly single mothers, we thought it would be very appropriate to include menstrual product access, right? Like menstrual products are a human right. And I can talk more about this later, but this morning, one of our other menstrual product bills was actually featured on LA Times. And we're super excited to continue the fight for menstrual product access. But this was our originating bill. As I said, it got picked up by Senator Menjivar. We did a lot of coalition building for this bill. And I think that's one of the really integral parts of youth advocacy is coalition building. So we probably sat in like over 100 meetings, and we ended up getting 11 co-authors, legislative co-authors in the California legislature, 13 organizational co-sponsors, including organizations like Alliance for Period Supplies, Period, the PAD Project, and more folks in the reproductive health space, and over 50 supporting organizations, both local, state, and national partners. And it's not on this, but we also got the endorsement of the California Legislative Women's Caucus as for this bill to be a priority bill. Awesome. So that bill unfortunately was held last year, and because of California budgetary restraints, and that's just a part of the policymaking process. But our advocacy we did on that bill really inspired us to continue advocacy for basic needs and economic justice, especially because we know so many young people benefit from these policies that are being made. So our current policy priorities are food security, housing, healthcare, education and workforce development, public assistance expansion, and accessibility. And young people have a stake in all of these policy issues, and our voices deserve to be heard. A little bit more about our advocacy strategy, probably shared amongst many youth movements. We are huge with social media mobilization, as many young people are, and as many folks in politics are in general. So we've hosted tweet storms to get people riled up, like tune in to the live hearings and then just like quoting people during the hearings and demanding that the bill get passed. We have social media mobilization. So we've done joint posts with collaborators. And we have done press releases with legislative offices, op-eds, and media coverage. So as I said before, one of our bills this year, which expands menstrual product access within the carceral system, actually got featured on LA Times earlier today. It was a really touching story. If folks want to see, I'm pretty sure you can just search up like incarcerated people, menstrual product access, LA Times. The reporter interviewed some formerly incarcerated people actually, and they shared a lot of their stories with menstrual product access within the system and how hard it is to access these vital products because of the dynamics between correctional officers and incarcerated people. So we really just want dignity for all and basic needs for all. And thirdly, we do a lot of coalition building, as I said before, with local, state, and federal advocacy organizations. And these are just some like pictures and examples of our advocacy. So these are on our Twitter, and Peer to Poverty California Coalition, which is a coalition that we led for SB 260. And I really just want to highlight the middle picture. That is Giovanna, one of our testifiers for our bill in Senate Human Services. And she is a low-income student parent from the LA region, and we actually fundraised to fly her up to Sacramento for her to share her story. And she brought so many people to tears that day, just talking about the necessities of products like menstrual products and diapers and similar things, and how when you're the sole provider for you and your child, it's really hard to budget between all of these essential items, and how much that extra cash allocation would have helped really with her family circumstance. So huge priority of ours is really highlighting the voices of those that we aim to serve, and we know that's not only young people. The policies that we advocate for, we believe would benefit everyone and public health in general. And that was just such an amazing moment just to give her that opportunity. And she was talking about how her family from Mexico tuned in live stream. And I just thought that was just so emotional, and just really seeing her. She was nervous at first, but she did so great. Okay, awesome. This is a little bit more just an op-ed we wrote in Cal Matters. So Cal Matters is one of California's main state-based media organizations. So we wrote a little bit about the youth-led movement, reshaping California politics and policy, specifically in the reproductive justice space, and how we hope that will branch out to other policy issues as well. Okay, and then a little bit about our current projects. So we have a lot of stuff going on. Our current bills in the California legislature this year include Assembly Bill 1810. This one would grant incarcerated people menstrual product access under all circumstances. And that one has been a huge discussion. I think it has been a real gateway discussion to the state of reproductive health in the carceral system, and how there is genuinely so much missing for healthcare in the carceral system. So a little bit of a backstory. I actually hosted a panel here at UCLA in partnership with UCLA Law School, and we invited folks from the policy space and also a public health professor. But most importantly, we had someone who was formerly incarcerated talk about her experience with reproductive health access. I mean, it's just honestly so shocking how they treat their incarcerated people, how the system treats incarcerated people. She was talking about just like the lack of privacy with reproductive health in the carceral system, birthing mothers being still shackled to their beds. And as you can tell, this is an issue I'm very passionate about, but I think really we need to shine more light for carceral policies and how we can expand reproductive health and justice and access, especially for people who don't usually get it. And it's very easy for those violations to be swept under the rug. So that one is a huge bill of ours. It's actually a bipartisan bill authored by Assemblymember Brian, who's local to this area. He's been very vocal about it, and he has a lot of work and experience with criminal justice policy. Next one, Senate. This is a Senate Constitutional Amendment 10. So this would enshrine a constitutional amendment in California for the access to food. And we've seen a rise of these human rights focused constitutional amendments here in California. And our organization thought it would be appropriate that we include food in those lists of benefits. So recently there was recently there was a similar constitutional amendment for the human right to housing. So ours would basically say that all Californians have the right to food. This is authored by Senator Hurtado. She represents the San Fernando Valley area, predominantly agricultural area. So she has a lot of ties to this issue as well. And then I'll just breeze over the last two, but AB 3240 would basically expand higher education accessibility through preventing universities from scholarship displacement, which is when universities reduce financial aid because of private scholarships that the student earns. And then lastly, unfortunately, our fourth bill did die. It was held in appropriations, but Senate Bill 953 would integrate menstrual product access within Medi-Cal under the narrative that menstrual products is healthcare. And menstrual product access has really great implications on physical and mental health. And we believe that the state public health insurance should provide for that. Again, it's been a very bad couple of budget years for California. So folks have been more like cautious with just bills with huge fiscal implications. So we understand, but I think this really reveals to us also the importance of having young people in policymaking, because these are multi-year campaigns, like it's very rare for a bill that will have a very big impact to be passed in 1 year. Recently, California expanded Medi-Cal insurance to undocumented people, and that was a huge campaign that had conversations from years back. So we really think young people have the drive and the youthfulness and like the ability to hold that institutional knowledge in terms of passing multi-year campaigns and really sticking it out. Group, like I talked a little bit about before, we're really trying to focus on menstrual product access in schools in Texas, which is a policy that California was really a leading force in. And then right now, a project that's in the works is we really want to figure out how to combine youth advocacy movements with research and more to how to bridge like policy recommendations from research into actionable steps that are led by young people. Okay. Oh my gosh, I just talked so much, but does anyone have questions? I know this is like a little bit more of an intimate space, so would love to take some questions right now. Yeah, go ahead. Mhm. Yeah. Mhm.
That it takes so long to get a bill recognized that you really need more youth coming in to keep these initiatives going. Can you talk a little bit about that and your actual timeline for a bill? What's ideal? What's reality?
Yeah, thank you so much for that question. So I think it definitely depends on the bill. As I talked about before, a movement that I've been very involved in following is Assembly Constitutional 10 in California, ACA 10. It's a human right to housing constitutional amendment. And housing is one of the biggest policy issues here in California. We're leading in, unfortunately, high statistics for the unhoused population. And they project that campaign would take 10 years. And I feel like a campaign is only strong if there are streamlined like forces that take advocacy strategies from the first year and see how they might matter in the 10th year, or see how there is more of that like active communication about, this happened during the second year of advocacy. How does this relate to like maybe like the last year that we're doing it? And how has leadership in like the assembly or in the Senate changed over the years? I think someone needs to hold that institutional knowledge. And I think that young people are best fitted to do that, because we're young, like literally, and we can get involved in these multi-year movements and really just like make sure that the future generations of advocacy include like folks who were involved in these advocacy processes before. Go ahead.
Do you think that maybe there is a way through like more support from legislators to decrease that time of like 10 years that's projected?
Mm-hmm. So for the specific bill that I was talking about, ACA 10, I think it really depends on legislative leadership throughout the years. You know, legislators term out of the Assembly or the Senate, and I remember just sitting on their coalition calls and them strategizing with different legislators. But I think something that is so like has such a huge human rights implication, like a human right to housing constitutional amendment, would not take like maybe any less than 3 years. I think it's something that California is trying to grapple with for sure. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for your wonderful questions. So moving into the panel. Okay. So would love to introduce this panel of youth advocates. We're going to talk a little bit more about how advocacy has shaped them, especially their fight with basic needs and being involved in WAD, but also just like how, you know, people's priorities shift and people's policy interests shift. But fundamentally, we are all fighting for the same things, you know, ideas of equity, ideas of justice, ideas of anti-oppression. And we just really want to expand policymaking to be more accessible to young people. Yeah. Okay. I'll take a seat. Okay, cool. So I would love for, maybe we can go down the line, but I would love for you all to tell us a little bit more about your experience in California policymaking, how you got involved, and what you're currently passionate about.
Hi, my name is Allison Cho. I'm currently a junior in high school. In my freshman year of high school, I had the privilege of volunteering at a local food bank called the Bread of Angels. And through that, I got to witness the firsthand accounts and struggles facing food insecurity. That drove me to seek for more systemic solutions. And during my sophomore year, I applied to 15 different jobs. Like, of course, I got rejected from all 14, but I did get accepted from one, which was to intern for Assemblymember Lisa Calderon. And through that internship, I think I truly encaptured the idea that community is the heart of society. I had the privilege to serve and broaden perspective through empathy. And I think I fell in love with shadowing ledge directors because policy is the center of our experience of our community. And we want to uplift and empower marginalized voices. For me, I fell in love with climate justice, housing insecurity, or menstrual equity. And I think we have to overcome these narratives. And so I can educate myself so I can better advocate for those voices who have been silenced.
Thank you so much. Elizabeth, you want to go next?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Can you like repeat the question?
Yeah, just tell us a little bit just more about your experience in policymaking and how you got involved and what you're currently passionate about.
Sure. So I originally got involved in politics, less so policymaking, around my freshman year of high school. So through internships with the city council member of my community in Alhambra and Monterey Park, I really got to see like a hands-on perspective of why community advocacy is so important. And a lot of the work that I did consisted of working on campaigns. So I personally thought it was so fun to just get real one-on-one connections with the people in my community that I would have never met had I not been a participant of these campaigns. And not only was it a fun and enlightening perspective for me to be a part of something larger than just myself, but I also got involved with more state assembly work, more Congress work. I started an internship with Congresswoman Judy Chu, and then that really allowed me to kind of shift my perspective. I wanted to go into the law side. And so through that, I kind of figured out maybe like constitutional law is something that I'm really interested in. And yeah, so through the years, I've kind of grappled and grappled through different perspectives, and here I am. I'll be studying at UCLA this upcoming fall. Originally, I decided to major in poli-sci, but I'll be switching over to public affairs to get more in touch with like the legislative aspect. And yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing. It's such a nice honor and to be here with my colleagues here today. So I am Martin. I am a senior in high school, incoming freshman at Santa Monica College, and my experience started during COVID. The Black Lives Matter movement was really big, and my friends were like, "We should go to a protest at a city council to see how it would be." So I joined, and it kind of sparked like something within me to take action within my community when it comes to youth struggles. So after that, I actually got an Instagram ad from a nonprofit to join their youth advisory board, and I was like, this seems like a really nice project. So I applied, I was accepted, and through that advisory board, we were exposed to so many different opportunities that has helped me today be able to do what I do today. So we were introduced into policy, which is where one of the bills that Fiona and I had a chance to work on originated, SB 951, the Youth Health Equity and Safety Act, which was also authored by Senator Banjivar. And through that, I was also able to apply to other youth advisory boards from other nonprofits. I'd worked with the California Coalition for Youth, a coalition that deals with homelessness based in the Sacramento area. So it's been mostly a lot about nonprofits, but also legislative activism when it comes to policymaking. So there's many organizations out there like WAD who do put youth at the focus of the policymaking. And thanks to organizations like that, I've been able to be involved in policymaking and hopefully pursue policymaking in the future.
Thank you so much. These young people are so inspiring and just sharing so many different spaces with all of them. I feel like I'm only a year older than most of them, but I feel like I'm like a proud mother just seeing them grow. Shifting gears a little bit to the bigger picture, after being involved in youth advocacy for a couple years now and many more to come, why do you think it's important for young people to get involved in policymaking?
Yeah, I'd love to answer that first. So, envision youth stepping up armed with political literacy and a deep understanding of issues that affect our communities, where diversity isn't just a buzzword, but a lived reality. And the smallest voting group, the 18 to 24 demographic, becomes a powerhouse of influence. We will ultimately inherit the decisions being made today. So get involved with policy. Don't be afraid, because youth have the power to transform societies and address systemic inequalities. By engaging with policy, youth can advocate for issues close to their heart. And for me, that was climate justice and economic justice. And I feel like we want to foster a generation of change makers who refuse to accept the status quo and committed to building a future. So to every young person out there, your voice and perspective matters. Your actions have the power to shape policy. So don't wait for a seat at the table, demand it. And for me, I was able to step out of my comfort zone.
Thank you for sharing, Allison. I think making sure that there is a seat at the table is something that I've been trying to work at, and as well as my colleagues here. And I think for me specifically, my parents never really had someone to look up to when it came to like policy making or leadership. I come from like a Hispanic background, a Latino background, and it was like, why do all the people who make choices about us not look like us, not represent us? And even looking at this room, I would love to see like our policymakers, our leadership, be so diverse and have like such diverse backgrounds and knowledge and experiences. But sometimes that's not the case. So that's why I think youth should start being involved in policymaking and just civic engagement, because we are the tomorrow, or we actually are the today. We are the leaders of tomorrow, and we'll be here longer, much longer than some of the leadership in place today. And I think making sure that we're able to set up our own future for success. I know we've seen the repercussions from bad policy or the lack of policy making back from like the industrial revolution when it comes to environment or other policies in other areas. So I think making sure that it's not something that's scary. It can be challenging at first. if you haven't had much experience, but you just have to, put your foot at the door. You will have many people like-minded, like this room, who will be there to support you, because you're not the only one who wants to make change, but sometimes it may feel like that. So I think that's why you should be making a single mission to make the policy making leaders reflect the population that they're representing. So that's why I think youth should be involved in policy making and just civic engagement in general. I know how many of us have seen like those videos on social media where it's like someone goes up to a random stranger on the street and like, oh, who's your representative? Who's your senator? Who's your president? And they don't know. And I'm like, how is it possible to live in a society where your life depends on the choices being made and you don't know who's making those choices? So I think that's why people should be involved, because if you're not having a say in the choices that we're making, we're going to be facing the backlash and the consequences of the lack of those choices. So I think people out there, be involved in any way that you can, because at the end of the day, we'll be here longer than they will, and we'll face the consequences that they don't have to face.
Thank you so much. Beautiful answers. My next question for y'all is, this is a little bit of a longer one, but what do you think are some of the biggest barriers to young people getting involved in adult-dominated spaces such as the policymaking process? I think something really unique about WAD and similar organizations we're involved in is really having young people directly involved in the policymaking process. So for some context, we're involved with amending the language for bills. Legislative staff come to us and ask about our opinions with certain language changes and their implications. We come to legislative offices with drafted language already to be workshopped, of course, and we sit in with meetings with legislative offices and folks from agencies. So the California Department of Education, California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. So we really hope to, of course, there's work to be done, but we really hope to be involved in every process. So what do you think are some of the biggest barriers to young people being involved in these spaces? And what are some steps that young people can take to overcome these barriers? Or I'll also expand on that and ask, what do you think that, like, what traits do you think the system needs to change in order for young people to be more involved with this process?
Yeah, well, that was a great question. Coming from someone who started off in the policy world around my freshman year, so that making me around 13 to 14, a lot of the people in my community look at young people to take initiative, but at the same time, there's a bit of a disparity in like the viewpoints that we have, and that's very common. But I also think in my personal like experiences, I worked at a law firm for about a year or so as an internship, and that was a very adult dominated space, right? I mean, you don't really see high school students working at law firms, but by being there for around a year, I got to communicate with people and kind of just shed light on what I view as like important. And I think this opened up my eyes a lot more on just sorry, like losing my train of thought. But I think that a lot of the access to resources also is another barrier. Um, since I was very interested in policy making since the beginning of my high school career, a lot of the ways that I reached out to people was through networking. And for me, that was just going to like my local farmers market. And personally, for me, my city council members always have a booth at the farmers market. So just walking up to people and being eager to meet new people was really important for me. But I noticed that there was a lot of ageism. And when we hear ageism, we think of people looking down on like elderly, but I think um that's fairly, I guess, relatable to young people too. Um a lot of the times people thought that young people don't know what they're talking about. They have like way too progressive views, and I think that um by just stepping out of our comfort zone and getting our foot in the door um, through networking, that we're able to shift that perspective. And I also think there's a lot of like social and cultural barriers as well. Coming from a predominantly Asian community, you don't really see too many young change makers. And so I guess just stepping out of that comfort zone and being true to what you believe and just being confident in general is really important.
Yeah, adding on to that, when it comes to breaking adult dominated spaces, there's no secret that young people face a lot of barriers. And for me, I experienced a lot of imposter syndrome. I didn't know what was enough. I kept chasing for more and I couldn't breathe from that. I had a lot of anxiety when it comes to politics because I felt like my voice did not stand a chance against these strong males who have in this business for the past 30 years. And I think for that, I was battling perceptions of credibility based on my age. In the face of obstacles, I think confidence was definitely key because nothing should be holding you back because your voice and your perspective is so powerful in shaping policy. I remember my first time during my internship when I went to a Mount Sac event. I was walking in, I was giving handshakes to people, and they were so strong. Like I was so shocked, like these old males were handshaking me, and I was really intimidated by that. But I realized that it's normal for that. It's normal to be scared, but you can take it day by day. It's not a race, it's a marathon. And I think taking a breath and seeking mentors is the way to go for this.
I think one barrier that I witnessed just this weekend was the environment that one is in. I think being able to get an international perspective on policy, international policy, and policies from different countries is able to put in mind how lucky we are. Because I've been able to meet people who they're not able to just contact a representative and be like, "Hey, I want this change," or "How can I help?" Because they're not given the opportunity. So I think on an international scale, making sure that we're able to do what other countries or other places have done successfully and implement those to areas who need them, because I think everyone should be able to have the chance to make a change. And even if the passion is there, some people don't have the access to be able to make the change. And I know we're lucky enough to have access to, be up here, speak with you all, but some people may not. So I think uplifting those voices and from those places and making sure that everyone's voices are being heard.
Thank you so much. And just kind of echoing what Elizabeth said about like anti-youth ageism, I feel like youthfulness is so beautiful. Like I've seen young people get stuff done so fast. I'm like, how are you guys so fast? Just with the proliferation of student protests across the nation on a variety of different things, I feel like young people are always moving, right? And that's not necessarily a tendency that folks from other ages are. And I think that's super compatible with the policymaking process sometimes, and just mobilization and really getting those urgent efforts done and being loud about it. So thank you. Okay. How have organizations like WAD and other youth orgs you're involved in, or adult orgs that have youth entities, provided young people with opportunities to create change? And how can other young people start similar initiatives in their local communities?
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and start off with this one. Just personally for me, just joining WAD has given me so much insight. I think just also meeting Fiona and Esther, people who have been involved in this space for such a while now. I've been able to learn so much from them. And originally I had mainly been focused on local governance, but now learning more about policy, learning more on the state level, I've my eyes have really been opened at what youth can do. Really, youth can do everything that other ages can do, but I think it's something that we're a lot more fearful to join the space of. But um, just through being in WAD for like just under a year now, I've been really excited to communicate with people on a larger scale. And I think WAD and other youth orgs have really opened doors for youth in connecting people with resources. Being the partnerships director, I've had to contact a lot of organizations, not just in the LA County, but also areas surrounding. And so even with a simple email or with a simple call in Zoom, you're really creating life-lasting bonds with people who see eye to eye with you, people who want to uplift you. And building networks is also something that WAD has really helped with. LinkedIn is an organization, a platform that a lot of people say to join. And even though in the beginning process of creating your profile, it seems a little bit tedious, but it really is a platform that I've been able to take advantage of. And I think by just having an organization like WAD being on your profile, or organizations that have like-minded goals being on your profile, you open the space up a lot more to who you're able to access. And I think also just having such a great working environment. I mean, not only are we like kind of coworkers, but we're also friends, and I think that makes working together so much easier. Because we're all, or because most of us are in high school and going into college soon. It's been really nice to just have an environment to work in that's so positive. And even though there's a lot of setbacks in this space, just having one another to communicate with at all times is really nice. And yeah, I think joining orgs like these, I really encourage it because it kind of gives you that safe space as well.
Thank you for sharing. And I'll touch a bit more on the adult organizations who have youth entities, such as youth advisory boards, youth advisory councils, anything of that sort. I think organizations who do that are doing such a good job at making sure that youth are being involved within their policies, the structure of the organization, the goals, the missions, and just the work that they do. I know, for example, I work for a nonprofit in LA, and our youth advisory board, we had 15 members from all around California. We're trying to reach like a national level, but as of right now, grant funding only allows us to have California. And we were able to get such new perspectives, things that I haven't heard of as youth and they haven't heard of as leadership in the community when it comes to like sexual and reproductive health, because the nonprofit works in sexual and reproductive health. So I encourage like any organization like out here in this conference or out here in this room, if you do have an organization and you're trying to get youth involvement, create something of that sort. Make sure that youth voices are being involved. And if you're a youth in the room, apply to those organizations and those councils, those boards, those platforms, because you'll be able to get mentorship, amazing mentorship. Some of these people are a bit older and a bit later in their career, but they have such a passion for youth involvement, and they'll like be your parent, your co-parent, like your coworker who's a parent. So I encourage you all to reach out there, come up and ask us for questions, ask anyone else in the room for questions if you're interested in anything else related in the field, because I think it's so easy to like push yourself down, but once you get like a foot in the door, it's easier to just let go and just go for it and like really push for change.
I want to add on to that. Like, I really appreciate WAD throughout my policy journey. I see them almost as siblings. I would call them randomly, especially Martin. And I'm just very thankful for them. But I think it is really important that we know the power of perspective. And I think when youth get involved in organizations, you're not only surrounding yourself with people that you see in your classroom every day, but with different perspectives, empathy, and especially within the testimonies. My favorite one is for AB 1810, menstrual products for those incarcerated. Just hearing the firsthand accounts cannot be replicated. It is so impactful. And the fact that I can listen and put myself in their shoes for just those slim moments mean everything. And I think these organizations broaden your perspective and empower you. And it's a platform to motivate you and to serve our communities.
Thank you. And just touching a little bit on the second part of the question for young people out there, it literally all starts with a proposal. Like, I have like 15 rejected proposals in my Google Drive. And you just got to start with a proposal and find someone who could be an asset to helping you make it possible. And I think when I started this organization, when I co-founded it with my colleague, we had like 5 different adult mentors from all different sectors, direct service, policy advocacy, help us workshop our proposal. And we were talking to people from like the grant management side. I'm a policy advocate. Like, I didn't know anything about grants or nonprofit leadership, but that just comes with it. And that was a huge learning curve. But I would say if you're a young person, watching, tuning in online, or just here, it starts with a proposal and you find people to help you make it better, and you trial and error for sure. But then, we're still trial and erroring, but it could become something really great. And it's just super inspiring to see other people, meet other people like this lovely panel through something that came into fruition from a proposal. All right, wrapping up this panel a little bit, the last boom of y'all's wisdom. What's the last piece of advice you have for young people hoping to create change?
I'll go ahead and start us off on this one. I would just say, I know it sounds pretty general, but be persistent. There's a lot of barriers that we face as young people, but like we said, there's a lot of trial and error, right? So, and it's heavy on the error part. But I think just like being persistent, getting up when you're knocked down is really important, um, especially going through managing both and balancing both your school and being a leader, civic leader. I think it's important for us not to get too blindsided in it. I think a lot of the times as a student, uh, I focus a lot on how I can be helpful to my community, but I also think it's important to kind of take things back at the end of the day and really reconsider like why are you doing what you're doing, and focus back on yourself a lot, taking breather breaks, just connecting with people around you and having a strong emotional support system. Yeah, and just I also recommend let's see, being adaptive, I think, is also important. Not everything's going to be smooth sailing, and just understanding that there will be bumps along the road, but knowing how to adjust and pivot is really important, and I recommend that.
Yeah, I can go next. My one piece of advice is to know when to take a break. I know sometimes as advocates, as activists, we're kind of like, oh, we have to keep going because the problem will only get bigger. But the problem is, if you keep pushing yourself to the limit, there will be a point where you'll just have like burnout and you'll just be tired and be like, you really forget the of why you started. So I think always reflect by us to why. Like, why are we here? Why are we fighting for this change? Why are we fighting for what we are? So I think fighting, and then starting small. When you have a solution, a proposal, it's kind of easy to get ahead of yourself and be like, let me contact the president or the prime minister. I think starting small, like a city, maybe even your neighborhood. Like if your neighborhood is like they all have the same values, go to the city as a neighborhood, go to the city as a group, and from there like build on. I want to say like I don't want to say like climb the corporate ladder because it's not corporate, but start small and it'll snowball into a bigger change and a bigger impact. So know your limits and use social media. The amount of people that are able to outreach on social media, I know, for example, a lot of people are fundraising for a specific cause like Palestine, and people are like posting the fundraise links, and you're able to fundraise so much because it really shows that although you're not able to see them, there are people who care about what you are caring about as well. So I think looking for like-minded individuals will create a bigger, like similar to what the in-person like neighborhood example is, but it'll create like an online perspective for this problem and an eagerness to fight the solution. So that's my last piece of advice.
Yeah, adding on, I want to say don't let society's narratives define you. Challenge them because your voice and your advocation is most important. And I think community is definitely the heart of society. So instead of just sympathizing with one, empathize, take action, and act upon it.
Thank you so much. Can we give the panel a round of applause? All right, awesome. I think we can open it to just last minute Q&As. I think we're around 10 minutes until the end of our session, but does anyone have questions for our panelists?
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Haruka. I'm a sophomore at Soka University of America, and thank you all so much for your everything that you do. I'm originally from Japan, and then I see voting rates of youth in Japan are constantly decreasing. So I was just so amazed by what you're doing and trying to make changes in your own community and in wider context. So my question is there any system reforms that should have been done to make this policy making process more accessible to youth, those youth who might not be interested in right now, but if it's more accessible, who might can get courage to stand up. So if there is any policy, like recommendation on system reforms? Like, I would love to hear.
I'll speak on that. I think it might be a bit challenging to be able to make systematic reforms. If you guys have anything to add, you guys can add on this. But I think as of right now, it's really the way the system is made. It's made like for it, so it's hard for us to be able to make any big change. So I think making sure the best way is to just go against the grain for now. I know hopefully in the future we're able to make some systematic change to be able to make protests more available or more what's it called accessible to be able to make sure that you're able to go out and like fight for a cause without being arrested, you know. But I think as of right now, it'll be really challenging to be able to do that. But I think going back to like, why are we here? Why are we fighting? Just to make sure that if we do have to go against the grain, make sure that it's like you know that it's worth it, and to know that the reason that you're fighting for is a good cause.
Thank you so much for the panel. It was really inspiring. I just wanted to know how can we get involved? How maybe we can join WAD, and how can we help?
I love that. Really appreciate hearing that. Actually, we're not on this slide just yet, but in a second we'll open up our Google form. There's going to be a QR code for people to join WAD. We're really excited to onboard new people, whether that be in a small capacity or a large capacity. We really appreciate any help that we can take on. But yeah, I think just any time that you have, whether that be um, 5 minutes a day to just like help us with research, or whether that's just in WAD or in a different capacity, I think we really appreciate any help we can get as youth advocates in general.
I want to add on to that. It's definitely hard to get your step into that, the space, because once you're in it, like you're constantly fed opportunities, but a lot of time I found struggling was that to get into that space in the first place. And I think joining organizations, speaking out is definitely a challenge, but your community is the source of all these opportunities. These local grassroots movements are all these things you can join. And I think WAD, you'd be a great addition for it too.
And then to add to that, I think on the legislative level, there's so many local politicians, like city council members, mayors, who are willing to hear us out when it comes to our problems and our struggles. So making sure that we show up to the city council meeting, I've been to one, and there's literally like 2 people in the room, and so it's like we have to be there and show up, because if no one's saying anything, the problems aren't going to be solved. So I think making sure that we show up to those local meetings where the choices are being made is very important. Any other questions? Oh.
Well, thank you so much. We truly appreciate this opportunity to speak in front of you today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.